today, not just the Indian media, but international media has exposed a particular company, which is AI-driven company called Zhenhua Data. No one would have ever heard of this particular company, but this company has been tracking some 2.4 million people across the globe. Out of which some 10,000 Indians have actually been tracked, including the Indian Prime Minister, Indian President, and the leader of the opposition. The entire cabinet is part of the tracking of this particular company. This is a time when India and China are actually going across a border dispute, which is grave enough, as the firing has actually started on the border as well. But this particular company has been tracking the database, which it actually calls as Overseas Key Information Database, OKIDB. So this particular tracks top India's politicians, the top brass of army officials, and also Indian opposition leaders. Even the Adanis and some of the top businessmen in India have actually not been spared. This particular company, how it functions, if I could elaborate on that, researchers say that the massive collection of information which is being used as a psychological warfare tool. So what happens in a psychological warfare tool is that it manipulates public opinion. A lot of companies have come under scanner for actually using social media as a medium to actually manipulate the public opinion these days. However, the database which was published was actually talking about how they actually track photographs, political associations, even relatives and social media IDs. They actually use a lot of variety of sources which are available, which are technically complex. They use AI tools. They actually use a very advanced language tools because a lot of these countries are not so much working on the Chinese language, because they all are working on English or even different regional languages. India is a very complex case, of course. So they are targeting, and they have classification tools. So AI actually helps them with this particular classification, and the research driven AI tools that they actually use are very much backed by the Chinese intelligence, Chinese military. Some of the security agencies also share a lot of open information to some of these particular companies, and there is a time when it's very difficult to for someone who is an outsider out of China to actually talk about how these companies operate, because they actually have a lot of backing of the Chinese Communist Party. Literally every company that works in China or is from China is actually supposed to follow some of these data protection rules. They are actually very much liable for answering to the government, the Chinese government, the Chinese military as well, in case any particular data is stored on their soil. This has also been one of the reasons why India actually banned some of these apps citing national security concerns, but highly difficult to really talk about the modus operandi. AI tools actually give them a lot of power. Chinese Communist Party's backing, of course, is a great tool for them to actually deliver on these particular trackings of the individuals. China actually engages in a hybrid warfare. A hybrid warfare is where you actually maintain the database of the individuals, including their Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, the accounts of literally anywhere the person has actually done any of these web browsing, any of the history of the people online. So this particular company has been known for actually using all the publicly available business records, which actually shows that it was tracking a lot of information available online on dark web as well. And a very pertinent thing is that this company is actually owned by Wang Zhifeng, and according to a research tracking company of Australia, ASPI, it says Wang is actually an owner in Shenzhen of Zhenhua Data, which actually created the database of all the overseas individuals. He actually graduated from Harbin Institute of Technology, worked for IBM, and he's been linked to a dozen other companies, including Beijing's Social Data Max Limited as well. It is not new because China has always been known to actually have their civil military fusion. That's how China has been able to actually maintain its inroads into some of these allies of US, way things are actually going on the border. The research company actually has exposed how it has been tracking some of these politicians all this while. This database was actually published overnight after it was leaked to a US academic. And it shows how somewhere around 2.4 million people around the world have been targeted. Some 35,000 even Australians. And Australia also has a very tricky relationship with China. So it's a hybrid warfare expose that have come into being. Any of the regulatory action is very difficult because if this Beijing's civil military fusion is the strategy of this particular company, the PLA gets unfettered access into the civil entities which are actually tracking across the globe. So any action on these particular companies from any of these countries highly difficult to actually ascertain right now. Trump has been, on the other hand, very active in making sure some of the social media companies are unsafe or which are not under the clean network, as Trump likes to call it, are actually getting banned from US. Banning this particular company, very difficult within the globalized world, with internet being the common thread for literally everyone. This particular company banning or not banning, I mean, wouldn't be a very immediate thing for India at the moment.